will say goodbye to free checking at Wells Fargo starting August 7th. All customers using the Wells Fargo Essential Checking account will be forced to pay $7 a month, even if you were brought over from Wachovia. Time to bring in our panel. Jonathan Collegio is the Communications Director for America Crossroads in D.C. Elisabeth Meinecke is the Deputy Managing Editor of Town Hall Magazine. And Remy Spencer is an attorney here on set with us. Jonathan, let's start with you. I mean, part of me says, what took them long enough?
I think you have two things going on here. First, there's just an enormous amount of cheap money that's flooding the market, so banks aren't having any trouble, and they don't really need the depositors right now. So I think that's the first thing. But the second part here is that there are a lot of new regulatory costs that they're frankly just passing right along to consumers. And I think those are the two things that are driving this move.
Remy, is there any legal ramification to ripping away this, charging this service fee all of a sudden?
It's reading the fine print.
Yeah.
It's reading the fine print. I think we all sort of sensed that this was coming. I mean, we kind of knew that it was coming. If you open an account with Wells Fargo, look at those documents. I'm sure that there is a waiver or a disclaimer that gave them the freedom, the authority to make these kinds of changes to your account after some period of time had elapsed.
You know what, Elizabeth, the problem with this is it is really a pain in the neck to move your money. So everyone's going to say, fine, I'll pay the $7 just because I don't want to deal with the inconvenience.
Exactly. Well, I actually spoke to someone at Wells Fargo about this because as a consumer, I don't want to pay more money. But they said they look at it as a way to really reward loyal customers. They want to be your primary bank. And so they'll waive the fees if you use them for direct deposits of over a certain amount, or if you keep a certain amount in that account. But the other thing is the government regulation. So before everyone starts getting mad at these banks, they should take a look at Washington, D.C. for passing things like Dodd-Frank, which has over almost 4,000 pages of regulation. And you're right. Direct deposits of at least $500 a month, $1,500 if you just are willing to leave that sitting there and you don't have to pay that little $7. I don't know. Probably end up paying the $7. All right, well, more and more universities are taking matters into their own hands when it comes to President Obama's controversial health care law. The University of Notre Dame is suing the administration, saying the mandate violates religious freedom. And a second Catholic school is dropping its student health care insurance altogether, saying Obamacare would increase costs to students upwards of 80%. Elizabeth, we are going to start to see more and more of this, aren't we? I really think we are. And honestly, what I'm waiting for in this instance is for Nancy Pelosi to give these students at Franciscan University and Ave Maria, two schools that are dropping health insurance coverage because of the Obamacare mandate and the contraceptive mandate, the same opportunity that she gave Sandra Fluck. She had her testify before Congress, before the Democrats in Congress, and I would love for her to give these students a chance to explain how Obamacare is affecting their wallets and their lives.
You know what's interesting, Remy? This whole thing could be null and void. We get the Supreme Court decision soon enough. It could be, well, a moot point.
That's absolutely right. This might be a moot point. It may be that our Supreme Court of this country finds that the law is unconstitutional. If not, this, I think, is just going to be the tip of the iceberg.
I agree.
We are going to see one collateral consequence after another that's going to have a real-life significant impact on people because this health care law is so strong and so forceful, and it's going to be effects that nobody could have anticipated.
Jonathan, coming down on our college kids right now, well, they're already carrying $1 trillion in student loan debt. Now they're not able to get health care. You think this is going to wake the administration up at all?
You hope it would. I mean, what you're really seeing here is the diminution of the freedom of conscience of an employer to be able to provide the types of services that they want to their employees. And the really ugly consequence of this is that, if you are a religious institution, if you are a church, you don't have to provide the contraception coverage. But if you are a religious organization, maybe you don't have that same freedom. So it really puts the government as the arbiter of how religious the institution is. And I don't think that that's something that the founders ever wanted to do, was to be able to put the government as kind of the arbiter of conscience in this matter, and that's really what they've done.
At this point, you don't want the government to be the arbiter of anything. All right, how about this? Before walking down the aisle, consider the price tag. It is actually up to $27,000. Remy here is engaged, so this is whopping numbers for her. Now, while the dress and the engagement ring cost a pretty penny, the venue takes the cake, costing over $12,000. You know what, Remy? You could have it in my backyard. If you want to do that.
I appreciate the invitation, and maybe one day I'll do that. And if my boyfriend's watching, we're not engaged.
Okay, you're not engaged.
So on the record, I don't want to give him a heart attack.
All right, fine.
But look, these numbers are skyrocketing, and I think that it's just proof that the there are some businesses that are not going to be affected by a downturn in the economy.
Yeah.
Women are going to keep getting married, and they're going to keep saving for these big wedding days. They're going to keep splurging on the shoes and the dresses. And, you know, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It may be not part of your moral compass or your budget, but people are going to keep putting money in the economy when it comes to their weddings.
It's something, right? You know, Jonathan, someday a little girl's going to look you in the eye and say, Daddy, I want the princess wedding. And what are you going to say?
You know, I think it's, you know, if a family can afford this, this is really, you know, weddings are obviously one of the most important day in a woman's life, in my life. But it's really important to be smart about this. And one thing I would hope is that, you know, in the recession, you get a lot of businesses who have to cut costs. And then when they come out of the recession, they end up a lot smarter. They end up with better bottom lines because
Right.
they did a lot of smart things. And I hope that with the skyrocketing tuition especially, and also with the skyrocketing wedding costs, I wish that people would just be a little bit smarter with their expenditures, and then they'll be on a more stable footing when the economy gets going later on. And then when it comes to, you know, actually the next step, which would be buying a house, they'll be a little bit better off.
You know, they say each table you cut, each 10-person table saves you $1,400. That's a note to my mom, who insisted I have a table of old people who stole the silverware and the bread basket. That's all. It
And the
cost
wine
her money.
glasses.
Jonathan, Elizabeth, Remy, thank you so much, you guys.
Thank you.
Really, it cost her
Thank you.
money just to have that table.